practice room was alive with laughter. Jungkook leaned back against the wall, his shoulders shaking as Taehyung whispered something only he could hear. Their laughter mixed together, a melody of comfort and closeness that once belonged to someone else. Jimin sat across the room, tying his shoelaces slowly though they had already been tied. His eyes drifted toward Jungkook, and for a fleeting moment, his chest tightened in silence. He used to be the one beside Jungkook, the one who shared quiet jokes, headphones, and late-night snacks. Now, Jungkook's world seemed filled by Taehyung, and Jimin was left searching for pieces of himself in the space between them. Jimin forced a smile as he stood and walked toward the water cooler, pretending not to hear Jungkook's laughter echo behind him. The sound was warm, too warm, and it burned him with memories of what they used to share. He wanted to be happy for Jungkook, to accept that friendships shifted and grew, but something inside him screamed that he was being replaced. The ache grew sharper each day, like a shadow that never left. That night, lying in his bed at the dorm, Jimin stared at the ceiling. The soft hum of the city outside the window blended with the quiet breathing of the other members, but none of it could drown out the thoughts racing in his mind. Jungkook was slipping away. He whispered to himself, barely audible, words that carried both fear and longing. If he can laugh without me, maybe I can make him miss me. His chest rose and fell as he clutched his blanket tighter. It was not anger that lived in him, but fear. Fear of being forgotten, of being left behind by the one person he thought would never let go. The next morning, his decision was clear. As practice ended and the group packed their bags, Jimin turned to RM, who was standing near the door with a notebook in hand. "Hyung," Jimin said softly, his voice steady despite the storm inside. "Do you want to have lunch with me later?" RM looked surprised for a moment, then smiled warmly, his dimples showing. "Of course, Jimin. I'd love to." And so it began. Jimin found himself lingering closer to RM in the following days. They walked side by side after rehearsals, their conversations flowing easily. RM's voice was comforting, his presence solid and dependable, like an anchor. Jimin laughed at his jokes, leaned into his words, and let the world see the closeness. But behind every smile, every laugh, his eyes often betrayed him. Whenever Jungkook was near, Jimin's gaze slipped in his direction, searching for a reaction, hoping for the smallest sign that Jungkook noticed. Jungkook did notice. At first, he ignored it, brushing it off as nothing unusual. Jimin was friendly with everyone. It was just how he was. But soon, the image of Jimin's bright smile aimed at RM began to settle in his mind, like a thorn that refused to leave. He found himself staring when Jimin wasn't looking, his jaw tightening when he heard Jimin's soft laugh directed at someone else. He didn't understand why it bothered him, why it felt like something was being pulled out of his chest. All he knew was that it did. One evening, Taehyung rambled on excitedly about a new melody he had composed, waving his hands in animated gestures. Jungkook listened, nodding along, but his focus was elsewhere. Across the room, Jimin sat beside RM, his hand brushing RM's arm casually as he leaned closer to whisper something. RM chuckled, his deep voice filling the space, and Jimin's laughter followed like a delicate echo. Jungkook's hands curled into fists, hidden in the pockets of his hoodie. His throat felt dry, his heart uneasy. He told himself it was nothing, but every glance at them made him feel otherwise. Days turned into weeks, and the silent tension grew heavier. Jimin pretended everything was normal, but his heart raced each time Jungkook's eyes flickered toward him. It was working. Jungkook was watching. Yet beneath the surface of his small victory was guilt, creeping slowly with every moment RM trusted him without question. RM, with his quiet wisdom, began to sense something was off. One night, when the dorm was quiet and the city lights flickered through the curtains, RM approached Jimin, who was sitting alone in the living room with a cup of tea. "You've been spending a lot of time with me lately," RM said gently, his voice calm but searching. "Not that I mind. I enjoy it. But, is something going on?" Jimin froze, the question slicing through the shield he had built. For a second, the truth pressed against his lips, that he was afraid, that Jungkook's closeness with Taehyung made him feel invisible, that everything he did was to make Jungkook see him again. But instead, he forced a small smile and shook his head. "No, Hyung. I just like talking with you." RM studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. Just remember, you don't have to hide things from me. I'm here if you need to talk." With a gentle pat on Jimin's shoulder, he disappeared down the hall, leaving Jimin to stare at the untouched tea in his hands. His throat tightened as he whispered to himself, "I can't let him know. Not yet." The next day, during rehearsal, RM handed Jimin a bottle of water. It was a simple gesture, but Jungkook's eyes caught it instantly. A flicker of irritation crossed his face, and he turned away before anyone could notice. But Taehyung noticed. He always noticed. Later, as they left the studio, Taehyung nudged Jungkook's shoulder. "You're quiet today," he said lightly. "I'm just tired," Jungkook muttered, brushing it off. But his chest was heavy, and the word tired did nothing to explain the storm inside him. Taehyung tilted his head, sensing more but choosing not to push. The silence between Jimin and Jungkook grew louder with each passing day. They still spoke, still practiced together, but their words felt forced, like echoes of what they used to be. Everyone around them could feel it, the space that had opened between two people who once felt inseparable. It weighed on the group, though no one dared to name it. Finally, one afternoon after dance practice, Jungkook broke. His voice cracked through the silence like a spark in dry air. "Why are you always with RM these days?" His tone was sharp, sharper than he intended, and his eyes burned with something he didn't dare define. Jimin blinked, caught off guard. "Why? Can't I?" he asked, his voice light but his chest trembling. "That's not what I mean," Jungkook muttered, looking away. His fists clenched tightly at his sides, his jaw tense. "It just feels like you don't need me anymore." The words slipped out before he could stop them, raw and honest. Jimin's heart skipped, his breath catching in his throat. For the first time in weeks, he saw the flicker of vulnerability in Jungkook's eyes, the crack in his walls. Relief surged through him, but it was quickly drowned by guilt. Was this really what he had wanted? To hurt him, just to be seen again? He forced a smirk, though his chest ached. "Maybe I don't." The words hung in the air like knives, cutting them both. Jungkook's eyes widened slightly, then dimmed, retreating into silence. The room around them buzzed faintly with the sound of others packing their bags, but between them, it was only the sound of breaking. That night, Taehyung cornered Jimin in the hallway. His voice was soft, but his eyes were serious. "Are you fighting with Jungkook?" "No," Jimin said too quickly, shaking his head. "It's nothing." Taehyung frowned. "He seems upset. And you look lonely, Jimin. Lonely." The word cut deeper than anything else. It was the truth he had tried to bury beneath smiles and laughter. He wasn't angry at Jungkook. Not really. He wasn't even truly close to RM. He was just scared, so scared of losing the place he once had in Jungkook's life. The fear had twisted into jealousy, into games he couldn't stop playing, until now even he felt lost in them. As he lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling once again, Jimin let the word echo in his mind. Lonely. The truth he had refused to face, but one he could no longer escape. The night stretched endlessly, and Jimin could not sleep. His mind replayed Jungkook's words again and again, like a broken record. "It feels like you don't need me anymore." He squeezed his pillow tighter, his heart aching with guilt. That was never what he wanted. He only wanted Jungkook to feel his absence, to remember how close they used to be. But now, the plan had left them both wounded. The following morning, the group gathered for practice again. Everyone moved in rhythm, but Jimin felt heavy, his steps slower than usual. Jungkook avoided his eyes, focusing too hard on every move. RM watched quietly, sensing the strange tension but saying nothing. Taehyung kept glancing at both of them, his smile fading into worry. During the break, Jimin sat on the floor with his water bottle, staring at the ground. He felt the urge to walk to Jungkook, to apologize, to tell him everything. But pride held him back. He was afraid of hearing words that might break him even more. Instead, he stayed where he was, pretending to be fine while his chest burned inside. That evening, as the others went out for dinner, Jimin chose to stay behind. He sat by the window of the dorm, the city lights blurring through his tired eyes. A sudden voice broke the silence. "Why are you doing this to yourself?" RM's tone was gentle but firm. Jimin turned his head, startled to see RM standing there. "I don't know what's happening between you and Jungkook, but I can see the pain in both of you. Don't hurt yourself like this." Jimin lowered his head, unable to meet RM's gaze. "I didn't mean to hurt him. I wanted him to see me again. I thought if I stayed close to you, he would notice. And he did. But now everything is worse." RM sighed softly, walking closer and placing a reassuring hand on Jimin's shoulder. "You don't need tricks to be important to him. You already are. Sometimes we forget how much we matter, but trust me, Jimin, he sees you more than you think." His words struck deep, filling Jimin's chest with both comfort and shame. He had used RM without meaning harm, but RM only gave kindness back. Later that night, Jungkook stood outside on the rooftop, the cool breeze brushing against his skin. He needed air, space to untangle the storm inside him. Footsteps approached, and he knew who it was without looking. Jimin. His presence was undeniable, familiar in every way. For a while, neither spoke. The city below them buzzed with life, but up here, it felt like only the two of them existed. Finally, Jimin broke the silence, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry." The words were small, almost lost in the wind, but they carried everything he had been holding in. "I thought, if I made you jealous, you would remember me. I was scared, Jungkook. Scared that you didn't need me anymore because you were always with Taehyung. I felt left out, and I didn't know how else to reach you." Jungkook closed his eyes, his chest rising heavily. Hearing the truth hurt, but it also healed. "You didn't have to do that," he whispered. "You've always been important to me, Jimin. Even when I laughed with Taehyung, I still thought about you. I didn't know how to show it. When I saw you with RM, I hated it. I didn't understand why, but I couldn't stand it. I guess I was scared too." Jimin's eyes filled with tears, his lips trembling. "So we were both just scared?" His voice cracked, fragile as glass. Jungkook finally turned to face him, their eyes locking. In the dim glow of the rooftop lights, there was no hiding, no running away. "Yes," Jungkook admitted, his voice soft but certain. "Scared of losing each other." The confession hung between them, raw and heavy, but it brought a sense of relief. Jimin stepped closer, his tears falling freely. "I don't want to lose you, Jungkook. I don't care who else you're with. I need to know I still matter to you." Jungkook reached out, hesitating for a moment before resting his hand gently on Jimin's shoulder. "You do. More than anyone. I was stupid not to say it before." For the first time in weeks, Jimin's lips curved into a genuine smile. It was small, fragile, but real. The weight on his chest lifted, even if just a little. They stood there in silence, the city lights flickering below them, the unspoken promise lingering between their hearts. The following days were different. The distance began to fade, replaced by quiet glances that carried understanding, by laughter that slowly returned, by touches that felt natural again. RM and Taehyung watched with relief as the two found their way back to each other, the cracks healing with time. But even in their mended bond, there was a lesson neither would forget. Jealousy had nearly broken them, fear had nearly silenced them, but honesty had brought them back. They learned that words left unsaid could wound deeper than any argument, and that sometimes, the bravest thing to do was to admit the truth. One evening, as they walked back from practice, Jungkook nudged Jimin lightly with his shoulder. "Promise me something," he said. "What?" Jimin asked, glancing up. "No more games. Jungkook replied. His eyes were serious, but a small smile played on his lips. If you're upset, tell me. If you're scared, tell me. Don't push me away. Jimin nodded, his heart swelling with warmth. I promise. As long as you promise too. I promise, Jungkook said softly, and for once, the words felt enough. The night wrapped around them, quiet and gentle, as their steps fell in sync once more. And though the world outside would never know the battles of their hearts, they knew. They had almost lost each other, but in the end, they chose to hold on tighter. And that made all the difference.